Continuing Basic Chemistry, Part 3, Balancing Equations. The New Mexico 8th grade science standards that this unit meets. And the unit essential question: how do chemical reactions help us examine the nature of matter? Turn to page 89 in your notebook and set up your paper for Cornell note-taking. The essential question: why must chemical equations be balanced? A chemical equation uses chemical symbols and formulas to show the relationship between the reactants and the products of a chemical reaction. And this is important because of the law of conservation of mass. Matter cannot be created or destroyed, so the number of atoms in the reactants must equal the number of atoms in the products. So for example, we have this equation: sodium plus chlorine gives us NaCl. Well, we count the number of atoms in the equation, and we'll see that we have 1 sodium, 2 chlorine atoms, 1 sodium, and 1 chlorine atom. We can see that this equation is not balanced. To balance it, we must bring another chlorine, but that's going to change the coefficient in this equation to 2. Putting a 2 here now changes the number of sodium atoms that I have to have. So now to finally balance this, I have to bring another sodium over to this side. Again, that changes my coefficient to 2. So now if I take a look at my equation, I have 2 sodiums on this side as reactants, and I have 2 sodiums in the products. I have 2 chlorines in the reactants, and I have 2 chlorines in the products. So this chemical equation is now balanced. Okay, so here are the steps. To balance an equation, first you count the atoms of each element in the reactants and the products. Then you balance each element or molecule by placing coefficients. Then you need to double check for accuracy. Now, a couple of important notes. Subscripts apply to the element or the compound. These subscripts cannot be changed. For example, H2 cannot be changed. Cl2 cannot be changed. And the 2 only applies to the H. It does not apply to the O. And this 2 only applies to the chlorine. It does not apply to the calcium. Here down in this one, we have a 3 on the oxygen that only applies to the oxygen. However, this 2 outside the parentheses applies to both the nitrogen and the oxygen. So we would have 2 nitrogens, but we would have 6 oxygens. Again, subscripts cannot be changed when you're balancing equations. Coefficients, the numbers that we put in front of elements, can be changed. These are the numbers that we add to balance these chemical equations. For example, we have 2 sodiums, our 1 chlorine molecule, and then 2 sodium chloride molecules. So to balance this one below it, we have 2 nitrogens here. We only have 1 nitrogen here. So I need to change this to a 2 coefficient. That now changes the number of hydrogens I have. I started with 3, but now I have 6. 2 times 3 gives me 6. So on this side, having 2 hydrogens, I have to put a 3 for a coefficient. Now this equation is balanced. Now it's time for you to practice.